right, so this machine turns on, spins, and then kicks off. I'm going to open it up and see what we can figure out. See if we can find out why it's kicking off. I've already removed this cover here, which is just flat screwdriver. Twist these 3 tabs, pull that off. This is going to be security Torx screws to take this nozzle apart. Security Torx screws are the type that have a little hole in it like this. So let's take the screws out. I think I'm going to take every screw out that I can see except for these 2 here, which are just holding the axles for the wheels in. So everything else is going to come out. All right, so we've got all the screws unscrewed. We're going to go ahead and take as many out as we can so we don't lose them.
Let me flip it over. These look like they're all the same size so far. They're all the same length, which is helpful. Let me put it back together. I'm not have to worry about putting certain screws back in the right spot. Okay. Get that one too.
Now, also, I just want to point out, this machine was used pretty heavily. So you can see a few things like signs of like heavy wear and tear. Like this wheel here got hair in it, and then it got bound up, and then it just wore a flat spot. It wouldn't spin, and then it just wore a flat spot in it. So if you can see, if I turn that wheel, there's just literally looks like a half moon. Also here, this plastic is worn down because that wheel failed. This wheel is about failing, and then you see the plastic there worn down as well. You can see where the plastic is worn off here on this base plate. So this machine's probably not worth getting fixed, but I'm still going to open it up so that we can figure out why it failed. Hopefully learn a good lesson. So this cover is going to pop up. Now, my understanding of the way these work is our motor is driving the brush roll here, and this board here is going to be sensing the load of this motor. And if the motor goes under a heavier load, which would happen if something jams this brush. So if you run over like a shoestring or like a sock or something and it jams it, it puts that motor under load, and then this breaker would want to click it off. Now it's clicking off when nothing is clearly jamming this motor up. So I'm going to open up, I want to investigate to see if we can pull these bearings. I suspect that the bearings have hair build up in them, and that's the reason why it's causing this motor to kick off, because it's producing just enough resistance on this motor to cause the overload to kick off. That's my suspicion. So I'm going to keep taking it apart and see if we can figure that out. All right, so this cover piece, it just is held in place by some clips. There's 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom here. So you should be able to pop those up if you're following along, unless you're just watching for entertainment purposes, which is a little weird. But thanks for watching if so. All right, so now we've got this assembly here loose. So I think we can lift it up. This cover piece might come up. Okay. All right, so we can go in and unplug the LED contact, and then we can pull these motor contacts too. And they're two different sizes, which is nice. You got your 1/4 inch, and then your I think it's 3/16 maybe. I'm sorry, 5/16, which is good. That way you can't mess it up, can't plug it in the wrong way, have it spin backwards. All right, let's see about getting into these bearings. I'm gonna take the belt off, feel how it spins. With the belt off. Oh yeah. Well, it's not too bad. I can definitely feel some resistance. It's not spinning as freely as brush rolls with bearings, with freely spinning bearings do. So let's keep going and see what we can figure out here. We've got 2 screws on this side. Take those out. All right, so there's just a little bearing holder that is going to pry up, and now you can see there's your bearing right there. Now the bearing seems to be spinning freely, so let's keep on going here, because I think this whole plastic assembly comes out. Okay, comes off. Looks like I got some screws to take out that are fastening that to the clear part. So here and here. I may not have to take these out. We'll see. Let me take these out first. Oh, this one too. All right, so there's a rubber gasket that's coming out, and then this whole brush roll assembly is going to come out. Oh, okay. That's probably our problem. So here you have like a really big section of hair and stuff that's packed up, that's packed in there, and it's like real dense. So all this stuff in here built up caused enough resistance against this area here to cause it to want to get bound up. So let me clean it out. Curious about this bearing, but I'm not sure if we can get to it without pulling this pulley, without lifting this off, and it's pressed in, might be glued in. Not sure if we're gonna be able to get to that. It does seem to be spinning okay. I'm gonna put it in the bench vise, try to pry this up and see how it feels and see if I can get it out. So, all right, so I put a little bit of prying pressure underneath here, and when I get to a certain amount of pressure, it starts to feel like it's gonna crack or I'm gonna break something. So then I stop. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just blow this area out. I can see a little bit of debris in here. Try to get it as clean as I can with just compressed air, and then clean this whole area out. And then let's put it back. Then I'll put it back together, and we'll see if if the same problem persists. All right, now let's just go back in reverse and reassemble this. And I'm going to explain something now. Shark has seemed to like solve the hair wrap problem for brush rolls, which, you know, is a common issue. Hair wraps around the brush. Now, what they haven't fixed is the main cause of failure with brush rolls is that debris, hair, dust, whatever, gets into the bearings and causes the bearings to seize up. That's the reason why brush rolls fail. Brush rolls don't fail because there's hair wrapped around this section. Brush rolls fail because hair gets into, it does wrap around in it, but it works its way into the bearing area of the brush. So they've kind of addressed the issue, but not quite. So in the fact that they seem to have a pretty effective design with blade style bristle, or whatever you call it. I don't know what you call it exactly. I don't know what they're calling it. There we go. I think I got it. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna just go back in reverse. Keep putting my screws in. The hardest part about repairing things is always putting it back together correctly. So pay attention. I'll try to walk through what I'm doing. We're going to put our screws back into this clear housing. And when you get this back together, you've got to pay attention to a couple things here. You've got one locator pin right here. Focus, there we go. One locator pin there. You're also going to see this bearing is going to be pretty centered, which is going to allow for you to drop this bearing holder in place there, and the screw holes will line up. Okay. Also, you're going to see your plastic, your clear plastic here, especially this one here. See that? It's going to go right over top for your screw there. All right. Put these screws back in. And it looks like everything is the same screw when you take them out in batches. Like, I took 3 screws out of here, and they're all the same screws. So I just set them in piles as I take them apart.
And
all right, let's see here. Next, we'll try to get this gasketing pressed back in. There's just a little channel that it fits into, so should we just be able to push it in?
And work itself. Work it in there. There always seems to be more gasket than what came out. See that? So you have to like kind of spread it out a little bit.
All right. So I've got kind of a little bit sticking out right there. I think it's going to be fine when this presses on there. Just going to smash it down. I don't think it's going to bother, and it's not going to run into anything. So, all right, let's get our bearing holder put back on. Just press this down, and then I think these 2 screws that I pulled out.
Good ones.
I can already tell it's spinning more freely, so we may have fixed this. I won't know until I plug it in here. Let's get the belt put on. Down at the bottom there, kind of is tight, so you have to like rotate it. And then you can kind of rotate the belt as you're guiding it onto the motor shaft. There you go. We're going to set this motor down here in place, and then we'll put the orange caps on. All right, so I'm going to drop this assembly back down in place. Watch this front edge. It didn't want to set in there very easily, but look, watch this front edge, and you can see I've got this perfect seam here. So I'm going to just pop in a couple screws here in the front, just to hold that assembly together. This is going to be from the first batch of screws I pulled out. And that's just going to hold it in place. Okay, now we can attach our wires. Remember, we got 2 different spade sizes, which is helpful, so we don't have to be confused on what to plug them back in. Neutrals here, or I'm sorry, this is going to be your positive, because this is a DC motor, so it's a positive, and then our negative is the black one. In most cases, positive is a red wire, and then the negative is a black wire. So if you have a black wire in another color, then your other color is usually going to be your positive. Usually. Okay, put these other screws back in. We've got the, looks like 5. 1, 2, here. 3 across. Yeah, and then 3 across the top right here. Let's see, stay in camera here. The 3 across the top. Oh, these screws are gonna hold in that one. So you could have taken this assembly apart without removing these 3 screws. These 3 screws hold in this black assembly here. So I could have pulled that and like cleaned behind there, but I didn't in this video. But that's what these 3 screws are holding. So we could have removed this nozzle without having taken out these 3 screws here. But that's something that you don't find out until you have taken it all apart. So, all right, now I think I'm put together enough to test it. So let's test it out. See if we fixed it. All right, well, my suspicion was correct, which is pretty cool. That's a good feeling. All right, so this will be a helpful video then. For those of you who have one of these sharks and you're getting that red light, it's most likely you've got some debris in the bearing areas. In this case, it was in the non-belt side bearing. And so that is going to be helpful for you to take this nozzle apart, clean it out, service it, and put it back together. Now I'm going to go ahead and put these orange caps back on, and I've got that one's in the wrong spot. So, and remember, they're just clips, so we can kind of line them up and just push down, and then you can get those things clipped in. There we go. All right. And okay, I don't have it there. I don't have it right. So see how it's sticking out right here like this? So I need to take it back off and reposition here. Okay. Looks like I need to try to get it under there first. There we go. Okay. Yeah, it needs to go, that little lip here needs to go under this black edge. All right. Flip it over and do the same thing for this one. Just get that lip under there. Press it hard. Okay. All right, home stretch. Just make sure this neck assembly stays in place. Make sure these wires don't get messed up, don't get out of place. They've got them clipped in here pretty good, so make sure these are tucked down. Make sure you plug your LED light back in, and that you've got these wires routed correctly, and then the rest of your wiring just kind of tucked down in here, and then you can go ahead and put your cover back on, just like that. Okay, flip it over, and then let's screw our 500 screws back in. assembly, then get your base plate put back in like that. Turn these to lock them. And then one other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop this one wheel out and pull some of this hair out, wearing out. So here are my final thoughts on this brush roll design for what it's worth. It does seem that they've got a good design for preventing hair from getting wrapped around the brush roller. However, I think they can improve on how they design the end cap or the ends of the brush roll so that they can more effectively prevent hair and debris from getting into the bearing. After looking at the video again, I realized there wasn't a ton of hair in there, and that what it was maybe was just more debris that caused this to jam up, getting caught between the plastic area of the bearing and not necessarily binding up the bearing. So I wanted to be fair with that assessment, is that it didn't seize the bearing. The bearing was fine, but what did cause it to seize up was some debris getting lodged between plastic parts that had a close tolerance. So I hope this is helpful. I hope it was helpful for those of you who might have one of these and had the same problem, that took it apart and were able to get yours working. If you have your own comments, I'm happy to read them. If this was helpful, and if this was helpful to you, please let me know in the comments. I always love reading those. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.